Precisa ferir a pressão, medir a glicemia ou tomar uma vacina? Na Drogasil tem exames, testes e calendário vacinal completo. E o que é melhor, tem sempre uma Drogasil aí perto de você. É fácil, prático e rápido. Dá para ir entre uma música e outra. Procure nossos farmacêuticos. Quanto mais você conhece o que a gente faz na Drogasil, mais você se cuida.
Dia 27 de agosto, você médico poderá participar de um evento sobre a nova era no tratamento da obesidade. Cadastre-se em novonordiskacademy.com.br e atualize-se com as últimas descobertas da ciência e obesidade. Evento destinado exclusivamente a profissionais de saúde habilitados a prescrever e ou dispensar medicamentos.
It's all about tapping this week, Lauren.
Oh, tap dancing. Why didn't you tell me? I would have brought tap shoes.
You don't have tap shoes.
No, I don't.
Luckily, you don't need them because I'm talking about EFT, tapping, emotional freedom technique. And that's what we are trying out here at the club. I'm Nicole Goodman.
And I'm Lauren Mishkon, and this is Self-Care Club.
The advice for self-care today is endless and can be yet another overwhelming job for women.
Every episode, we trial a different self-care practice, live it to the letter for a week, and report back to you on the results.
Will it actually improve your well-being, or will it be another waste of your time? We test out self-care so you don't have to.
Welcome to Self-Care Club. Emotional freedom technique, shortened to EFT, is an alternative treatment for healing pain and eliminating emotional distress. It's commonly referred to as EFT tapping or just tapping. The origins of EFT tapping may be traced back to the 1970s. Numerous clinicians around that time began stimulating acupressure points in order to help their patients cope with fear, anxiety, distress, and phobias. Gary Craig later streamlined the technique and made it available to the general public as Emotional Freedom Techniques, or EFT. In easy terms, EFT is a talk and touch therapy that handles issues like stress, PTSD, chronic pain, anxiety, depression, and anger by using the fingertips to apply pressure on specific points of the body to stimulate energy points.
EFT works by tapping on the meridian points, the supposed paths through which life energy is believed to flow in the body to release blockages. These specific pathways of energy or meridians help balance energy flow to maintain your health. Imbalance of energy flow can result in disease or sickness. Tapping with the fingertips on these meridian points is believed to release the blockage, thus releasing the pain or distress. EFT tapping helps us tune into the negative patterns that we form around our uncomfortable thoughts, feelings, or troubling memories. We tap on the correct pressure points while bringing the thoughts or emotions into consciousness. The aim is to find relief, relaxation, and promote energy healing around the emotional or physical issues that hold us back.
To do EFT tapping, you use your fingertips to gently tap on these points while focusing on the issues you want to resolve and saying phrases out loud. EFT techniques draw on acupuncture, acupressure, neurolinguistic programming, psychology, and energy healing to provide physical and emotional benefits like reducing stress. Because stress is intimately connected with your immune system, eliminating or reducing it is going to improve your overall health and wellness.
There is, however, an absence of scientific evidence to support the effectiveness of EFT. Studies have demonstrated that it has been effective in war veterans and active military personnel with post-traumatic stress disorder. Some studies have also claimed that EFT is beneficial in controlling anxiety over other standard therapies. However, more research is required to determine the efficacy of EFT treatment over other cognitive therapy techniques. So, let's talk about what the benefits of EFT are.
Yeah. So the first one is it eases depression. In 20 independent studies, experts rated EFT as highly effective in easing depression in multiple settings among different groups of people, and said overall it was more effective than antidepressants or psychotherapy.
Wow.
Yep. And people using EFT also maintained their more positive mood over time.
Nice.
That was the first one. The second one is it lessens anxiety. In a group of 5,000 people, 90% who did EFT tapping saw an improvement in their symptoms of anxiety compared to only 63% who did traditional cognitive behavioural therapy, CBD. And the EFT group only required 3 tapping sessions to start seeing results.
That's amazing. I mean, that's astonishing results.
It is, isn't it?
Astonishing.
It decreases pain. It can be used for a variety of conditions like fibromyalgia, tension, headaches, frozen shoulder, brain injury. It gives the mind something else to focus on. It sort of rewires your brain.
Incredible.
It eases PTSD, as we said. If anyone has that, it can reduce cortisol, which is the stress hormone in the body. And it can be used to reduce cravings so that you can achieve your desired weight.
Ooh.
So it's simple, it's painless, it's easy to learn. You don't necessarily need a therapist once you know how to do it. It's not as expensive as normal therapy. It doesn't take much time. It can be used with specific emotional intent towards whatever's going on for you. You can heal yourself with it. And it's supposed to be very good for your psychological and physical well-being.
Should we talk about the downsides?
Yes.
And just a few precautions?
Yes.
EFT is completely safe.
Yep.
There are no known adverse effects. The worst that may happen is that you don't perceive a difference in your anxiety or stress levels. That's the very worst. It's important to understand that it's not a miracle technique, just like any other therapeutic treatment. It is likely to take some time before any noticeable results may be seen. It's complex, so it's important to get the help of a skilled EFT practitioner. It's also worth noting that issues that have been unresolved for a long period take longer to settle than other concerns. When using EFT, there are a few things to keep in mind. It's important to stay focused on the issues at hand and not become sidetracked or disconnected. The emotional freedom technique allows people to see their problems from a different perspective than they are used to. Staying hydrated is important because EFT deals with the movement of electrical energy through the body, and water is an excellent conductor of electricity.
Not a problem for you.
I was just about to say, but it is a problem for you. That's probably one of a real downside for you, isn't it?
Is.
So how do you actually do it?
So you concentrate on the negative emotion. That could be a fear or an anxiety or a bad memory or an unresolved problem or whatever it is that is disturbing you. And before tapping, you need to establish a setup phrase that describes the current issue you're facing. So the two main goals that you need to focus on are recognizing the issue and accepting yourself despite the problems. So a very common setup phrase is, although I have this, whatever the fear or problem is, I deeply and completely accept myself. And you can alter the phrase depending on whatever suits you. And while maintaining your focus, you use your fingertips to tap 5 to 7 times each on 9 of the body's meridian points. And you tap on these meridian points whilst aiming at accepting and resolving negative emotion. And that helps to repair any energy disruption. The tapping sends signals directly to the stress centers of the midbrain, which reduces the stress or negative emotion that you get from your issue, and EFT ultimately then restores balance to your disrupted energy. So the therapist will guide you through which points to tap and where and guide you through the phases. But once she's done that once, you can carry on doing it yourself.
So we were lucky enough to have some help this week. We enlisted the help of Kate Mori-Youssef. Kate is a women's ADHD lifestyle and wellbeing coach and an EFT practitioner. And she helps overwhelmed yet unfulfilled, many with ADHD like her, women find more calm, balance, health, compassion, creativity and clarity in their lives. By using EFT in her coaching practice, Kate guides more women to rediscover their inner voice, tap into their expansive wisdom and potential, fulfill their desires, and realize themselves outside of the overwhelm, inner pressure, and family dynamic. She is also the host of the ADHD Women's Wellbeing podcast, which I have actually been on, and a mum to 4 children. She says, I'm passionate about using tapping with my clients because it's such an efficient and effective way of clearing negative blocks, releasing long-standing resistance to change, and peel back layers of emotional baggage that prevent us from moving forwards. Kate is also a friend of ours, isn't she? And she's been very supportive of the show, as we have been with hers, and we are delighted to actually bring her to your ears, clubbers, because it's long overdue.
And this is what she had to say.
Hello, Kate. Welcome to the Self-Care Club.
Hi, thank you for having me.
This is long overdue, as I was just saying, isn't it?
Yeah, we wanted to do this for ages and ages and ages, and now we're going to.
Ages and ages.
And I don't know what's going to happen. Tell us, well, can you give us a little idea what to expect, and do we need to prepare anything in advance of our sessions? So I would definitely come with an open mind.
Yes, Lauren.
It's EFT, emotional freedom technique, it's sort of in the brackets of emotion of energetic psychology. So even though we are working with kind of like a psychology, Western psychology, there is the Eastern acupressure points, there's the meridians that we're working with, but it's like an energy deblocker as well. So you are going to feel like a release, and it's going to feel in your body, hopefully a release, but you'll also feel calmer in your mind. So sometimes I think it's better when you don't know too much about it, so your expectations aren't all over the place. So yeah, I'd say open mind, lots of water, and come with something that you feel you're ready to release. Come with something that has been weighing on your mind, that you are just you've been on it thinking, and you're just ready to just let it go and see where it goes. Because very often we start with something and we think it's going to go one place, but it goes another place.
So it could be a physical thing, it could be a fear, a phobia, or it could be an emotional problem, or it could be a worry. What are sort of some of the common things that people come with?
Yeah, so it can be just something that's been playing on your mind for a while, but it's very often people come with a physical condition and they've not made the connection that the physical condition will be connected to something emotional, something that you've been holding on to, an old memory, an old belief, trauma. And very often that's connected, well, it is always connected to our body. So if people have said, I've had this sort of back pain and it's been going on and it flares up here and there, we kind of get to the root of the problem when maybe the first time you felt the back pain, and then something might have happened around that time, that era, where there was a trauma, there was something that someone said to you. So yeah, it can be physical, it can be something to do with migraine, it can be to do with neck and shoulder pain, but it also can be something like a phobia, or something that you've really just tried to work on through other modalities and it's not shifted. So EFT is very good for that type of thing as well.
And how long is each session, Kate?
So it can be, I've heard things being cleared in half an hour. I mean, I've talked to other therapists and they've just said within 30 minutes that the issue's gone. I typically work between 45 minutes and an hour. If something's really deep rooted, it can be a good few sessions for sure. We use this analogy of sort of peeling away the layers of the onion, or the tabletop, where you're sort of knocking away different table legs, because sometimes you don't want to go too deep too quickly. Yeah. So, we use the term aspect. So we kind of go through one aspect, which gets to another aspect. So it could be something that really has been, you've been holding on to from childhood, but we just keep chipping away. And you do, even though you may not get to that root cause that session, the layers just help that, the feeling calmer, feeling more peaceful, feeling less anxious. A lot of people just say the weight's been lifted and they can't quite put their finger on it, but they just feel a bit more sort of at ease with life. So I personally just think no matter what, EFT helps in some way, whether it's the physical or the emotional. It feels like there's always been a release in some way.
And do you use it on yourself? Can you use it on yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I genuinely think this has been like the best tool that I've used for me. I use it on my little one as well, who's 7. She's the most open to it. The older you are as a kid, they're a bit more kind of cynical, and adults very much so, can be very cynical. But I use it on myself all the time. It's like a self-calming technique, always. So yeah, it's very good for anxiety, for worry. If you are spiraling, which I have a tendency to do, I kind of like have an anxious thought and then it all just kind of kicks off in my head. So I bring myself back into my body, which is, what we need to be doing. It's a really good grounding technique. So I use it with breath work and I tap, but I also sort of do it. I can talk to myself as well, and teach my clients how to do that. So if they are in a situation where things feel like, a bit out of control and they just need to kind of get back into their body, they need to release something, it's fantastic. And, even just getting to sleep at night for kids is brilliant. They can just, tap, they can calm themselves down. So, and we're literally using our body, we're using the meridians, the energy flow in our body. Everyone can do it. And it's so simple as well.
I love that. It's accessible to everybody. I love it. Well, thank you, Kate. So you're going to come back on Friday's show and you're going to tell us a bit more about the benefits and who it's good for. Is that good with you?
Yeah, lovely. Can't wait.
Well, we can't wait to chat to you again. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So, how did you feel going into the week?
I've actually got a voice note
Oh, great.
to explain to you how I felt going into the week. Got my EFT session with Kate in about an hour. Obviously, as usual, coming to it with a healthy dose of scepticism. This is just not something I would ever entertain doing if we didn't have this podcast. It just doesn't feel like me at all. I've met Kate, so that part I'm not worried about because I know she's lovely. I don't know, I've just always had maybe it's just a bit of an unfair stigma in my own head about the tapping. It just feels very strange. But, that's the point of this podcast. We test this stuff out. So I will report back afterwards.
Not one person is surprised by that voice note.
I wasn't happy about this week.
Oh.
At all.
Oh, I was.
I know, because you've wanted to do it for ages and I've been resisting it.
Well, I've done it before. So you've never done it before.
I've never done it before. And for some reason, and I can't really put a finger on it, it always felt a bit like culty.
What?
Yeah.
Wrong.
Well, I know
Wrong.
now, but that was
Wrong.
like the image I had in my
How?
head.
From where?
I don't know.
You are funny. You decide on these things and then they become totally
Yeah,
binary.
Yeah. And I was like tapping. What the fuck? No. It was such a... I just really didn't want to do it. I just had a real thing about it. And no, I've never done it before. And I would never do it if we didn't have this podcast.
I was really looking forward to it.
You have done it before?
I have done it before.
With a practitioner?
I've done it with Kate before.
Oh, okay.
I've done it with Kate. So I knew I was in good hands and I knew what to
Okay.
expect.
I did not know that you had done it with Kate
Yeah.
before. Okay.
So how I'd done it before is because we kind of met in lockdown on Instagram. I don't even know how we came across each other, but I'm very grateful that we did. And then she's obviously a coach and I'm a coach, and I had my podcast and she had her other podcast and we went on each other's podcasts. And so we've always been in support of each other. And then I was really struggling with something, with the fallout of a friend, which I've spoken about many times on here. And I wasn't sleeping and I was dreaming about it a lot. And I was very stressed and very anxious about it. And I was anxious about bumping into her. And it was all very heightened and I just wasn't coping with it. And I was telling Kate, just sort of like having a chat. And she said, we should do some tapping. And she took me through a session. And it was remarkable. Remarkable results. I started sleeping. I felt calmer. If I bumped into her, it was fine.
Just one session?
One session
Wow.
completely released me from the hook of all of this anxiety.
Wow.
So I was really looking forward to it.
Okay.
Where did you get that it was like a cult? Did you think everyone was just like in a tent in weird costumes, like going,
No,
tap,
not
tap,
like
tap,
that.
tap, tap,
No.
tap, tap?
Not like a Mormon cult. Not like a religious cult. Just like
What sort of cult?
it was just a weird thing to do. Just a
Okay.
weird, unnecessary, odd technique.
But when you started doing the research for the show,
Yeah.
did that shift your mindset? Or had you already
Well, I
had
had already had the session.
Okay.
So I kind of understood more what it was about. But even despite that, it's still not something I would enter into voluntarily.
Okay. Well, we know that.
I know.
That we know. Because it's therapeutic.
Yeah.
And it just makes your whole body coil.
It still is. Even today, even now, talking about it.
Even after
the
all the
session.
stuff we've done
Yeah.
for over 2
Yeah.
years,
Yeah.
the therapeutic space still makes you coil.
Cringe.
Why?
That's like 25 podcast episodes. Is the
That's
answer
a
to that.
whole
That's a different
new
podcast.
podcast.
Yeah.
Okay.
I probably need to explain to you what I did with Kate. Otherwise, my recordings are going to make no sense. So when we met on the Zoom call, she said, "I want you to think about something that's making you worried or upset or anxious, something that's either tangible, like a real thing, or an emotion, a feeling."
And were you like, there's nothing making me upset and I'm absolutely fine? Were you like that at first?
No, I didn't say that.
Did you want to say that?
Yes.
She keeps rolling her eyes at me, by the way.
So I did have, I said I do have a tangible issue that would be quite handy to deal with. It's a bit of a weird one, but
You're going to share it?
I'm going to have to share it because otherwise my recordings are going to make no sense at all. I've been driving since I was 21. So I've been driving for over 20 years and that's fine. I'm a perfectly normal driver. And my mother used to live in Northamptonshire. So I spent a lot of time driving up and down the motorway with her when the children were very, very tiny, babies in car seats on my own. And I did it and I never loved it, but it wasn't a problem. When lockdown happened and we all stopped driving or really going anywhere, I think for some reason, something manifested itself. I think that's maybe where all the lockdown, all the anxiety over everything went, and it went into my driving. And I became very fearful of driving out of nowhere. Thank God I've never had a crash. No one I know has had a crash. There's no drama. Nothing happened. I just got very frightened. And the thought of going on the motorway was an absolute no-no. And then it kind of got worse and worse to the point where I didn't want to drive on the North Circular. In fact, when it was at its worst, some days when I was at your house, I would drive home to my house and then to my son's school so I could avoid driving on the A41. That's how bad it got. And I was really, really ashamed of it because there was no reason for it. It wasn't logical. It was a completely illogical fear that I had created in my own head that I had to get over because it's not practical to not be able to drive on a main road when you've got 3 children. And I haven't been able to find the crux of it and I haven't been able to fix it. And I have done some I don't know what they call it, the stuff where you just put yourself in the situation that you're most scared of. What do they call that? Immersion therapy or something. So I did a drive out of London with my sister-in-law and I did the motorway drive and
But you had to. There was a reason.
I had to because her car wasn't big enough and she wasn't insured on my car.
So you were kind of thrown into it.
Yeah. And so I did do it, but it was absolutely terrifying for me. And I have also sort of forced myself into doing main road driving to try and get myself out of this space. But it is something I'm really uncomfortable about because I can't put a finger on why it's happened. And I also can't really fix it.
Okay.
So that was what I wanted to bring to her.
Okay.
So that's my second recording. So the week that we had the session, Ollie was away and Josh had been invited to a trampolining party, which is on a particular part of the North Circular that I hate because the junction that it comes off leads onto the M1. And I had got it in my head that I was going to take a wrong turning and end up on the M1 and be lost and be stuck. And I was really, really, really freaking out about it. But I also knew there's no way on earth I wasn't letting my child go to the party because I didn't want to do this drive. And so that was kind of in the forefront of my mind when we had the session.
So the intention was to be able to take Josh to the party on Sunday in a calm way.
Yeah, and also to try and just release whatever the hell this is.
Shall I play your voice note?
Yes, please.
I've just finished my session with Kate. It was kind of what I expected, but kind of not at all what I expected. There was a hell of a lot of tapping. It was an hour's session. And I was hyper aware quite soon into it that I had forgotten to take my eyebrow dye off. So I was tapping onto these sort of plasticky feeling eyebrows.
Oh, because you have to tap your forehead.
It looked weird, but I don't think she noticed. What came up, I suppose, to summarise it, was my resistance towards leaning into any feelings of anxiety.
Interesting.
She's given me some tools to deal with what I'm dealing with, and I will have reason to use them on Sunday. I'm not going to put too much pressure on myself. I want to see how I feel on Sunday. But I know I've got the tools there to use, and I think it will be really, really interesting because this is quite a small drive, to do this as a little experiment to see if it actually works. But I was as open and honest as I could be with Kate. I really kind of went into it with an open heart and did everything I feel like I should have done.
And so let's see.
And
Play the voice note. It's Sunday and I am about to set off to do this drive that I didn't want to do. The interesting thing was I was actually given a get out this afternoon because another mother who had a child at the party said, "Oh, it's really out of your way, don't pick up, why don't you let me do it?" And I was so on the cusp of saying okay, but I just decided I have to try. So I've just sat in the car and done just maybe 90 seconds of tapping and exactly what Kate told me to do. And I'm now going to set off on the drive. Well, I did the drive.
well done.
Thanks. And she even said, if you're sitting, even if you're driving, even if you're in the car, you can still tap, like not both hands on your forehead or your eyebrows or anything, but you could still like tap the side of your hand, just give yourself a little bit of reassurance. So when I was getting to the junction that I was really anxious about, I did sort of just do a couple of taps, and she told me the point is you don't pretend that it's not happening. You don't talk yourself out of it. You sort of talk yourself into it. Does that make sense? You kind of accept it. You say, I'm feeling frightened, I'm feeling worried about this drive, but I'm okay. I still accept myself as I am, but I am feeling worried now, and I am feeling a little bit scared that I'm going to take the wrong turn. And you just like say it. So that's the sort of mantra I did. I sat in the car and I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, I'm a little bit frightened about doing this drive and I'm a little bit worried about X, Y, Z, and then I just did it. And it was all right. It was all right.
But that's big for you.
Yeah, it was fucking huge.
Yeah, but I don't even mean just the drive. I mean for you to accept that you're frightened and scared about
I couldn't
something.
bear it. I can't even tell you like how uncomfortable
Exactly.
the whole
so even that
thing
a
has
big
made
leap.
me. Yeah, and it all led into. She's like, well, can you remember a time when this was very acute or when this happened? And I did remember. Suddenly, it came on, and it was before lockdown, and I was doing a drive to my brother's. He lived in America now, but he lived about 15 miles from me, and I had to do a couple of junctions on the motorway to get to him, and I did take a wrong turn and I did get lost. And obviously I've got Waze and a sat nav, and I was never going to get home, but it panicked me, and I think that's what kind of sparked it. And and she was like, can you think of another time in your life where you felt panicked? Can you think another time in your life when you felt anxious? And can we go back to that? And it was like, oh, go away. When have you felt this feeling before? Let's talk about your childhood. When in your childhood,
what she's doing is she's unlocking something.
I understand. I understood exactly what she was doing, but I was like, ugh.
But the more that you hold on to that and the go away,
Yeah.
the more you're going to feel nervous about this driving.
No, I did have, as I said in the recording, I was very, very honest with her. I was very open with her. I did chat to her about all sorts of stuff, and I did do that drive, and I have noticed since that I feel a little easier doing drives that otherwise I would have thought about, and now I kind of find myself just driving automatically like I used to do on some drives without even thinking, oh shit, I'm on the North Circ, I'm just driving.
Well,
yeah, that's big. It's not fixed. I can't do a motorway drive now. I would still feel anxious if I had to do that same drive again that I did that Sunday. I would still feel wary.
well, hold on. There's a big difference between wary and very anxious.
I can't. Yeah, there is. So,
there's a big shift there.
Yeah, there is. It definitely did help, but it needs.
What are you still doing
more.
the tapping?
I have done it a couple of times in relation to driving. Yeah, I have. So
Well done.
that's my week.
Okay.
Look how disappointed you are that I haven't like delved into all the mucky shit. She's so disappointed with me.
I'm not disappointed.
A little bit.
You know what? We know each other way too well now. So you now know what I'm thinking, even if I don't say it.
I know.
When you mentioned about the motorway, I thought, oh, here we go. So she's done that one. But that's a big thing because that does impact you on a day-to-day basis.
It's massive for me.
Yes.
Not driving on a motorway. I don't have to drive on a motorway on a day-to-day basis. But also, it's things like my son's going to university, not in London in September. If something happens to him, my automatic response needs to be, get in your car and drive to your son.
On a motorway.
On a motorway. Not, I can't. Of course I can get a train. But
No, you need to get in
But
the
not
car.
at 3 a.m. And what if my husband's away and I need to go and get him? I need to be able to do this stuff. It is important.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
yeah. So there you go.
Okay.
Now tell me about your tapping. Did you do jazz? Did you do a bit of Chicago?
I did contemporary dance. So my session got moved.
Right.
So it got rescheduled.
Okay.
And I think these things always come at the perfect time, and they always come in the best way possible. And it got moved by a couple of weeks, actually. And within that couple of weeks, I had have I mentioned it on the show about my malfunction? I think I have.
Yes. Yes.
That I had a total meltdown.
Yeah.
And a panic attack in the middle of the Phoenix furniture department.
Yeah.
So
At least there were sofas.
Well, it started in Boots, and it was
no,
so hot
Boots
in there.
isn't the place.
And I was so overheated. And then when I started to, anyway. And when I say panic attack, I mean I couldn't breathe, I couldn't walk. And when I called my sister and I heard her voice, I just burst into tears. And she asked me why I was crying, and I didn't really know why I was crying. My body was doing things that I wasn't aware of. I didn't see it coming, and it was kind of just talking to me in a very powerful, very frightening way. So I brought that to the tapping about my anxiety. And it took me, after the panic attack, it took me about 3 days to feel completely normal again. For 3 days, I was still breathing in quite a lot. I was still quite short of breath. I was quite panicked that it was going to happen again. So I wasn't quite myself. So I spoke to Kate about a week later, and I said to her, I've been dealing with a lot of anxiety. And the root of it is that I was just overextending myself in too many. My fingers were in too many pies, and I wasn't able to give it my all everywhere. So I felt like I was failing everywhere. And with a lot of talking and with a lot of tapping, it presented itself that I was ready to give up my hairdressing. And that was the one thing that had to shift, because that was the area where I felt the most anxious. Honestly, talking about it now, it still gets me like...
Yeah, but I also feel anxious talking about all of this now. It's making me feel really, really uncomfortable.
What, my hairdressing?
Yeah. No. Yeah, no, I won't get my fucking hair cut, so that is a problem.
Anyway, and it's the pressure that I find with it, with having to fit people in and being on everyone else's schedule, and I just don't have the space for it anymore.
You also don't want to do it.
I don't want to do it. I don't have the space for it. So then that leads into anxiety.
Yeah.
Because I'm basically doing something I don't want to be doing, which is what she said. And she said, you don't run that way. I said, no, I don't run that way.
You're never out of intention with yourself. And
that's nice.
And you are. And so that feels bad.
So with some tapping, we talked about the anxiety, and you sort of start on your forehead, and you'll do like 7 taps on your forehead, and then you go to the side of your head.
Start on the side of your hand.
Start on the side of your hand.
Inner eyebrow, outer eyebrow, forehead, top lip, chin. Shoulder blade,
chest.
What are these called? What are these called? Collarbones. and then
the back,
like a little pat, one for the hand of the pat.
Yeah, and then you do it again.
And again,
and, you
and
go
again,
in a
and
cycle.
again, and again.
And what she does is she gives you an affirmation or something to say. So she will, and it's very raw and it's very true.
And she repeats to you. That's the weird thing.
She repeats to you what you've said.
She's mirroring you.
And then when you repeat it again and again, like, my hairdressing is very stressful. I can't cope with my hairdressing. I can't cope with all my clients driving me crazy. I can't, and she's repeating it back, and then you're repeating it, and then it just sounds, it loses its power somehow.
Yeah. So she'll say, let's have a chat about XYZ. So you have a chat, and then whilst you're tapping, she repeats phrases and exact words
that you've said.
That you have said.
And then you repeat them whilst tapping.
Yeah. It's an odd thing.
Because you feel like such a twat. You're like, I can't believe I said this, or I can't believe... As you're tapping, it's starting to transform itself, and it's starting to move itself into something different. Anyway, after that, we had a whole chat, and she did a bit of coaching on me. So that wasn't part of the tapping. But when I finished the whole conversation, I felt free. Is the only word I can think. Because what she'd done, she'd released this anxiety. Because I've kept saying to myself, I can't stop doing it. I have to keep working. I have to keep being stressed, because this is something I have to do. So when she's repeating that back to me, it's like, no, I don't have to do that. That is such a story I am telling myself. So she released that for me, or I released it for myself. And then when I came off of that call, I suddenly had possibility. Rather than being stuck and resistant in where I was, there was a way of saying, right, well, what actually can I do? What is achievable? What is manageable? And once you start having that conversation with yourself, that changes everything.
Yeah.
And on the back of that one session, I have decided to stop hairdressing, which I mentioned last week. That was on the back of the EFT. So now I've had 2 sessions of EFT. One when it was the breakup of my friend and I was just completely heartbroken and devastated. And I managed to completely pause and stop that anxiety. If I see her in the street, it used to be a whole stomach lurch. I used to feel sick. It used to stay with me for like an hour.
Yeah.
I don't love seeing her,
Yeah.
but it's fine.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's like, oh, okay, there she is.
Yeah.
It's like a second. So she completely changed it.
Yeah.
And she completely changed. And I haven't felt anxious since, by the way. Have not felt anxious since.
That's amazing.
I know. Should we summarise?
Yeah.
What worked?
I guess being able to do that drive on Sunday that I was really dreading. I felt like I had tools in my back pocket given to me by Kate to be able to do that. And that felt much more empowering than saying to the other mother, no, you pick him up, and then me sitting in the whole
avoidance.
Yeah. Oh, I've avoided it again. Well done, me.
Yeah.
And having fixed nothing at all.
Yeah.
It's still not great, and it obviously isn't about the driving. I knew it wasn't about the driving because I knew that nothing had ever happened when I've been driving, so it was never stemming from that. So it obviously stems from other things.
Which I refuse to look at.
Which I don't want to delve into particularly.
Well, then it will stay there.
But her kind of feeling was, you need to have a look at why you are so resistant to feeling anxious or feeling vulnerable or, you know, all of that stuff.
But can I say, and this is something I tell my clients a lot. I had a conversation with a client the other day about a big emotion that she was feeling and she didn't want it. But actually that big emotion, your anxiety or your fear can be very useful, and it holds a lot of information. So rather than dreading it, hating it, resisting it, telling yourself that you're ashamed of it, it's there to tell you and to help you and support you.
That was a large part of the conversation, was me having to get over the fact that I felt really ashamed that this was happening to me. Does that sound crazy to you?
No, because I know you.
And it felt like a real...
You have to be running on all cylinders. And
all
if you're
the
not
time.
running on all cylinders, then you are failing. And that is just not a truth.
Well, it made me feel very kind of pathetic and weak and...
But that's not...
human.
But that's not true. And it's not kind, and it's not nice.
It's not, but that's
and also, you are going to have times in your life where you struggle with things, or where you feel emotional about something, or you feel upset, or you feel anxious, or you feel tired, because that's part of the human experience.
Yes, it's a human thing, but that in itself made me very uncomfortable. That I have this issue that is really pathetic.
Firstly, stop saying that, because it's not pathetic.
No, but that's the feeling.
No, but we've shifted that into something else. So what is it now?
What is it now? It's I suppose a reluctance to lean in to just being a human being sometimes. Yeah. Is that it?
Yeah,
I guess something like that.
I could say a lot more, but
mixed up with a million other things. In a nutshell,
I think you need to find a way to be okay with sometimes not being okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of that.
Yeah,
and this is just a very acute and odd manifestation of that.
And a lot of that, when you're not okay with not being okay, then you start to live in a place that you're not in a place of truth with yourself. and you can get out of integrity quite quickly because you're not being honest. And it's okay to have a panic attack in Venice, and it's okay to be scared to go on the motorway, and it's okay for all of these things to manifest because they're here. They're here.
But you see, the funny thing about this is it's such a physical manifestation of it that I can't hide it. I mean, I can.
Well, that's why
I can, and I cover it up a lot. But I would never have said to you, I'm driving home now and then I'm going to pick Josh up from school. I would never admit that to you. But sometimes I was doing that. But sometimes I couldn't hide it. And sometimes I would have to deal with it, like with that motorway drive and things I have to do. And then it kind of hits you in the face. So it had to be addressed. And I know you said like, oh, you're just dealing with the motorway thing. But it's a very
I didn't say
real...
that. You said that.
No, you said it earlier.
No,
I knew you were going to deal with the motorway thing, you said.
But you brought it up. I wasn't going to say that. And you were like, I know you think that I'm just dealing with the motorway thing.
Yeah.
But it's all part and parcel. I don't think anything is in isolation from anything else.
Well, no, it's not.
It's just
it's not. It's just this is how it's come to light, basically.
Revealing itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like insomnia, for a perfect example. It's never about the sleep. It's about whatever is happening in your life that is causing you to not sleep that you have to look at.
Yeah.
Don't treat the sleep. Treat the problem that's stopping you from sleeping.
I sort of have to treat both because obviously you have to be able to drive everywhere.
Yes.
And I have to, yeah.
But until you get underneath it,
Yeah.
it's not going to go away.
Yeah. So,
and that's therapy for you.
Yeah. So what didn't work was sitting in the mess. that bit. I didn't enjoy that.
Well, nothing didn't work for me.
Okay.
It all worked for me. I think tapping is powerful. I think it's transformative. I think it's amazing. I think it's one of the best therapies around for me.
It's so easy.
It's easy. It's powerful. It's so quick, so transformative. I find it an incredible, honestly, I'm not just saying this because Kate's my friend. I honestly find it an incredible technique.
I do know a few people who've tried it who really, really like it. You know, it really works.
And if you've got a great practitioner who's a really good listener and also has that coaching experience, it's a win-win.
I think a lot of it might be dependent. I know they say you can just kind of do it and do it on your own, but I actually think having someone talk you through it is really important.
Well, also to draw out the things that you're really thinking, the things that you're really feeling, because you can still lie to yourself, can't you?
And you can lie to the other person.
You can, but if they're a good practitioner, they'll pick up on whatever's going on.
She's a very intuitive person, so she kind of, you know, she understood a lot of what I was saying without me having to say very much. And I do think, finding someone who's like that is a good idea if you're going to do this.
Yeah. Is it coming in the club?
Yeah. Why would it not come in the club?
1000% coming in the club. We could have a tapping workshop.
Tap, 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 tap.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I know you're uncomfortable with it, but it is brilliant.
I am still deeply. And actually, I'm really surprised that it's been 3 weeks since we did it. And I'm still uncomfortable about it, talking about it now, weeks later.
Are you really surprised? I mean, I'm not surprised.
I am. I'm surprising myself.
But you're totally
I'm
uncomfortable.
surprising myself today.
But you're totally uncomfortable with it.
I really am.
Not the it's not the tapping.
No, not the tapping.
It's the being vulnerable.
I'm not uncomfortable
that is
with the
always your edge.
It is my edge, yeah.
Don't worry, clubbers. We'll tap it out of her. So that's our show on EFT. We'll be back on Friday and we'll hear more from Kate on Friday in our epilogue show. She's going to tell us more about the benefits of EFT and who should be using it. It's going to be great. We'll hear back from you guys if you've ever had EFT, so make sure you tune in for that.
I'd really be interested to hear the listeners' experiences on how they've got on with EFT, what it's done for them.
If you want to be in touch about it, Nicole...
She's Nicole. I'm Lauren. We're the Self Care Club podcast. That's a new little intro we're trying.
I was about to give my
your personal
email
address. I mean, you can, but maybe not. Let's try hello@theselfcareclub.co.uk.
Shall I give my phone number out
Why
whilst
not?
we're here?
You can find us on Instagram at Self-Care Club Pod, or you can find our personal Instagram accounts if you want to stalk us. We'll be back on Friday with our epilogue show.
Bye-bye.